to the replay viewers. So good to have you here. Today I'm here with someone that I do call a friend, Sheila Williams, and also she's, I would say, a colleague because she's in the same industry that I am. We're just both like, I feel like we both are just like on this thing where we're always learning about personal growth and
Yeah.
just how we can show up in a way in our lives where it's just like we allow more of the things that are just like, wow, like life can offer that too. Like, life can be this good. And I feel like both of us, just because I feel like I know Sheila pretty well at this point, we're always like, well, who do I get to be to really like say yes to that, to really like allow that kind of a life to be like just show up at my door. And that's what I keep learning from me, anyways, is it's like, because I do a lot of this work and what comes back to me is like, but and are you being the person who's like ready to receive that? When you get into energy, like, you can consciously be saying like, oh yeah, I want that. But then when you get into energy, like your energy may be like not available for that. So
Yeah.
that's why we talk about these things. It's like, let's get into the energy. So if you've never seen anything with me before, my given name is Timothy Waterman. I like to go by my nickname of Beau. That's a nickname. It has a story behind it, but that's why you see it in the description below. And I'm a channel, and I'm also, so if you've ever like studied Abraham or Bashar, like you know what it is to be a channel. So that's one of the things that I offer consciously. And then I'm also a life transformation coach for women and LGBT men. Just have a lot in common with these groups of people. So I feel like I can just relate in a lot of ways. And yeah, just help people really go from where they are, start where they are, really get clear on where they would like to go from here, what they would like to live, what they'd like to welcome in. And then, yeah, find out, okay, who do I get to be? Because typically there are shifts, whether even if they're just energetic and on the inside, typically there are shifts. Sometimes it's actions and decisions in the real life reality. Other times it's just like, okay, what's going on with my energy or my thinking or my behavior, my attitude, all this stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit of all of that, but help people just like get clear and then, okay, how do I become that person? How do I allow these things and help people find their way as they connect with their own answers? It's not about me telling people this is what you need to do. It's like we get curious and I ask questions. Like people tell me the questions I ask kind of just sometimes they're like, whoa, I've never even thought about it like that before. But when I
Mhm.
ask the question, all of a sudden they know something about themselves that they just weren't hearing before. They were kind of
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to hear that. But then when they hear it, they're like, oh, now I know what I need to do. So that's just a little bit of a preview and how I show up for others. Before we get into, and if you want to know anything about me and or Sheila, uh, we both have links in the description of this video where you can head over to our websites and find out more. If you have questions, if you like what we offer in this conversation, just know it's as easy as going into the description of this video and you'll find a link for independent links for each of us. So I will give Sheila an opportunity to introduce herself, and then after that, we'll jump into today's conversation. uh, the title of the video is the first line you see in the description, which is about being in the 40s and the 50s, where most often the body starts to present differently. And you show up one day, you're like, whoa, I feel different, I look different, like what's going on here? And there's all the society stuff. There's all those opinions, which to me can feel kind of harsh a lot of the time, like harsh, judgy, making a problem. And then there's
Mhm.
like the whole like conscious way, like, but what if we could take a step back and see it through like gentler eyes, if you know what I mean? And we'll get into more of what that looks like in the conversation. So that's the theme, that's the gist. And having said that, welcome Sheila. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, feel free to introduce yourself in your own words, however you'd like.
Sure. Thanks, Bo. You covered so much ground there. I had all these responses and things that I was ready to jump in. It's like, no, wait, we're still doing the introductions. So I can't wait for this conversation that is already unfolding so brilliantly with so many great aspects. My name is Sheila Williams, and I am an intuitive coach. I live nomadically, although I'm usually based in North America. I'm Canadian, so right now I am in Alberta, Canada. I'm currently in my vehicle because I was having some technical issues, and I promised, but I was like, I will be online. Don't worry. If I can't get anywhere to set up my computer, I will just park and we will do it from the phone. So it's fun to be just in the moment and let it unfold. So far, so good. I hope it continues. Very much in the same line as Bo was describing. I love working with people either in groups or one to one and allowing them to really gain awareness of where they're at now and how they would like something to be different. And so often people just don't know that how, and they really get bogged down by, well, how do I do it? And when is it going to happen? And why hasn't it happened already? And to work with people in a way that allows them to take that step back and shift the questions that they're asking, giving that whole new perspective. When that happens, it all of a sudden feels a lot less hard, a lot more clear, choiceless, obvious. And you think, well, why didn't I know that earlier? And to know that it's working out perfectly now is the perfect time. That's all. And so I love being a guide for people to simply have that different shift of how they're viewing it and to know what's possible. I think sometimes it is fun to help people even play in that what's possible game. And then, as you said, like, who would I need to be to allow that possibility to unfold really easily? And it's usually easier than we think to step into that version of ourself that can have that without question. Of course you can. So I've learned it for myself, and that's why I love guiding others now.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm excited to see because we're kind of honing in on one kind of specific thing today. So
Mhm.
excited to see what our combined experiences bring. Because it's real. Like this is real life, and I find that all the time now. Like people are always just sharing, like just like let's just be real, okay? Like let's not
Mhm.
pretend that these things aren't happening because they're happening.
Yeah.
It's like, and at times you're like, it just kind of takes you by surprise. You're like, wait, this is happening now? Like, how do I do how do I do life now? Or how do I navigate this? This is new to me, in terms of the body changes. Real quick, I want to just say hello to Melinda and Denai. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, feel free to offer questions as we go if a question comes up or a aha, a response, any of that. I have the chat open so I can see anytime you chime in, and we'll do as much as we can to add that stuff into the conversation. That's one of the things I love about being
Mhm.
live. And then real quick before we officially jump in, I just wanted to share one thing because this is another thing I've learned because I'm always like just observing and human behavior, and we have so much in common, but yet we can also have like a lot that's different. And one of the things can be how we communicate. Like Sheila and I can say something that makes perfect sense to us. Someone else might be like, what do you mean by I get to become the person? Like, what does that mean? And so I just want to give a quick example on that because we both kind of touched on that. Like, you get to become, and it's not to me about becoming something that we're not. And you can tell me if you agree with this or not, Sheila. To me, it's not about becoming something that we're not. It's just about realizing, like, am I the person, like, energetically that's a yes to this, whatever it is that we desire? Because this is something that I learned on my own yesterday because I went into my imagination and I imagined something that was very delightful to me. It was having a romantic partner, and it was very like on a wonderful imagination thing and very kind things. Like breakfast was made for me. I was given, I was told we're going to Paris, like it's all set. And as I was like feeling these amazing feelings, I realized that as I was feeling them in my imagination, because to the body, it's said in a lot of these metaphysical and even kind of like some kind of scientific fields, it's said that like the body actually responds the same to imagination as physical
Mhm.
reality.
Yep.
So my body's responding, and I'm just like, I'm very self-aware, so I'm noticing like, oh, like this all feels so good, and actually I really haven't been available for all of this. And so that's what I mean by I get to become like I get to become the version of me that's available. That's not like, like just pass me on by, like no room for that. I get to become the version that's like, I'm available for that. How do you feel about that, Sheila?
Well, I love everything that you just said. I think I do have a slightly different angle, same
Okay.
idea, but for me, what can really be effective is when people do identify that current place and where they want to be. So, for instance, I was driving a car, it was a loan to me, and I wanted to be really careful with it. And I was a bit paranoid something might go on. And I thought, who would, what would I be feeling as the person who was very, confident about driving this car and having it be no big deal and there's no need for nerves. And so I realized, ooh, I like that idea of confidence. And I tapped into the confidence that I do have as a driver. I am a very good driver, and even confidence about other topics. And I really let that be present in my body so that I was feeling confident. And that shifted over to the current situation of driving that car. And I felt completely different. My whole body relaxed and my breath got deeper. And I became more of my normal version of a driver who is quite confident, and it let go a lot of that story part of, oh, I don't want it to get scratched, it's really expensive, blah blah blah. So sometimes I find focusing on what would someone who is feeling really good about driving, what would she be feeling, what emotions are there? Well, it's definitely confident and sure and capable. And so I tap into my own experiences of feeling that way, and I kind of bring it into the now moment.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I just realized too. It's like, yeah, what am I tapped into in this now? Like and what am I welcoming? Like to me, you welcome the confidence. So like, let me like bring my confidence here now.
Yep.
And for me, it was like, let me be receptive. Like let me be receptive for like this kind of
Hmm.
affection and love. Like let me be available for that in this now. So yeah, it's because it's all about the now, like what we're
Yeah.
cultivating for ourselves in the now. So yeah, thank you for going there with me because I just wanted to expand because I could just see someone who maybe has never seen us talk or just maybe doesn't really know what that means. Be like, what do you mean I get to become?
Hmm.
So I was like, well,
Yeah.
let's expand it a little bit. Okay, well, since we've covered that, yeah, so 40s, the 50s. um, let's see. Denai said, beautiful approach to bringing desired feeling into now moments. Thank you, Denai. Yeah, glad you were a fan of that of our approaches. So 40s, 50s, messy middle. It's sometimes called. Changes are happening, and what I've just found for me is it's like, okay, changes are happening. How am I going to respond? That's what I've been finding. But yeah, feel free. I'll just turn it over to you, Sheila. Just anything you want to say about your experiences, because actually the reason I suggested this is because I get your emails, and I saw an email where you were just openly sharing. I'm chuckling at something Denai said. I'll read it in a second. Uh, that's the thing with live. Sometimes you just see it out of the corner of your eye, and you can't help but react. Yeah, I was reading one of your emails, and you were just like openly saying like, "Hey, like I'm kind of in a new paradigm in my life. Like things are different. It's been honestly, I'm trying to navigate it all."
Yeah.
And so it was based on that email. It's like, well, hey, like let's talk about it. Let's talk about real stuff. So yeah, anything you want to say about your life or what you've been navigating that you feel that other people might be able to relate to, feel free.
For sure. And I think we are in very interesting times because I am turning 53 in a couple of months. I remember when my mom was 53, I thought she was really old. She had the elastic pants and was already wearing matching pastels and had short permed hair. And that was the time it was. But I remember my grandma, she was really, really old at that age. And it's shifting a lot for us now. And I do think that we are And I mean, I guess every generation probably has this perspective that they're more young at heart and more vital than maybe the generations past. And so I love that, because that means that for my daughter, these types of um, thoughts and even conversations, they might be happening for her generation in their 60s. And that's fantastic. So for me, it has been certain realizations. I do feel very energetic, very vital. And because of all the stresses of being younger in my 20s and 30s, I had young kids, I felt tired a lot. There wasn't time necessarily for recreation, just going for a big long walk or joining a yoga studio if I wanted to. I have that opportunity now. So in some ways, I am healthier than I've ever been before. And yet, there are those things that science is telling us so far that, and especially my doctor is very rude, because anytime if I do go into something like, well, now that you're 50, and I just say, no, 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 no. I get to choose how I age. That's my personal perspective. And so I don't want to necessarily buy his prescription of, well, your eyes are changing and then this is changing and that's changing and that's just normal. I think, no, what we're talking about here is not going to be my new normal. Thank you very much. So, again, on the physical level, and any woman knows that I'm talking about hormonal type shifts and the changes in your body as you're going through the perimenopause and then menopause and then whatever postmenopause. I've been going through perimenopause since I was 38. So there have been a lot of shifts. And thankfully, I think a lot of the more life disrupting ones all happened really early for me. And so, but that's good. And yet there are still lingering changes. So you're never quite sure. Is this normal? Is it not normal? And then, as we talked about, what do I want? What do I want my own experience to be? Maybe I don't care what's normal or not. And letting it be a little more playful. My eyes were changing a few years ago. I got prescription lenses, and I thought, I don't want to wear glasses. I got laser eye surgery 20 years ago so that I could ditch the glasses. So why don't I just allow my eyes to be perfect? And most days they are. I don't wear glasses anymore. If I'm driving at night, it's a security to just have them on. But I love the fact that I'm allowing myself to choose and empower myself in my own well-being. So that's maybe just a place to start. Of course, the cosmetic, it's always there for women. When does your hair start to go gray? Do you let it? Do you fight it? I am very fortunate because my hairdresser puts in some highlights. So we do not technically cover my gray at all. We just disguise it a little bit. And so the eye is fooled, but it's all there. There's tons of it. And I can tell because the texture is completely different, which again is a whole other conversation. So I'll leave it at that for now. But it's been fun to have this new land of discovery.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, yeah, I'll comment on that in just a second. Just want to catch up with some of our comments real quick, and thank you for sharing all of that so openly, and being real. Again, people these days are like, just be real with me. Like, don't pretend I don't know, because I know. Um, Denai said 40s and 50s are the new 20s and 30s, smiley face. So, yeah, I love it's
Mhm.
just, yeah, attitude is very important. So I do feel the approach and the attitude we're taking towards anything really is super important. So I love your youth-filled approach tonight. Jill says hello. Thanks for being here, Jill. And then uh, Danielle says, "Let's play doctor. I will tell you all the really great things you want to hear." And then she also says, "Make up your own rules as to what is normal, quote unquote
Mhm.
normal.
Yeah.
Heck, make up your own rules for everything." Uh, well, that's part of it too. Was just because I've had our good friend Rhonda on here a couple times, and we also like, well, this is what we kind of learn from society and culture. Like
Yeah.
these are the attitudes that maybe a lot of people were just told. Like this is how you approach it. This is what you think about it. And I know people like us, and it's not that we're better, it's just that we're kind of like questioners. We're like, but do I need to approach it that way? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, I feel like there might be another way. And so instead of us just kind of, letting all these ideas be plopped on us and saying, okay, now they're mine, I do feel that's just what the type of people we are. We're like, but wait a second, like, I don't know if I really like that approach. Like, let me pause here and see if I actually want to take that on.
Yep. True.
Uh, and so, yeah, that's part of it is just like looking at what we might have been taught to think or the approaches or attitudes we were taught to have, and then just really like taking that moment of empowerment and be like, kind of like you were talking about with your doctor, you're like, oh, I'm not really like on board for that conversation. Like, you know, two people in this conversation, and I'm not really, I'm not feeling the approach that you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Uh, which, is empowering rather than just being like, okay, just whatever you say. Um, and as you can tell, I like to laugh about stuff, bring some levity to all of it. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I've had a few things. They're not like necessarily huge for me, but they, when they happen. So for instance, it's just like I just have noticed how like my nose is getting bigger, and like, this isn't, like I said, like a big deal, but it is like, all of a sudden you're just looking in the mirror like, wait a second, like what's going on here? Like I kind of like my nose the way it was. Uh, or like the gray hairs, again, because like you never have those thoughts until they start showing up, and you're like, okay,
Mhm.
so am I gonna color it? Like, like what am I gonna do here? Like these things show up, and now you're having new thoughts. Now you're asking different questions because it's just all of a sudden it's on the radar. Like I honestly, I was thinking about that today. I was like, am I gonna dye my hair? Am I gonna like dye my beard? Because like there's some silver hairs in my beard. And it's like, what am I gonna do? Like, now I'm thinking about it. Uh,
Yep.
so it is all real. I'm just curious because I know it is obviously significantly different for someone, in a woman's body, and just because like the reproductive aspects and all these things, like
Mhm.
typically, just in my own life experience, I've heard that it can be a lot of times a more significant change up, for those that have the body of a woman, and
Mhm.
that, yeah, it can sometimes be confusing because you're doing research, you're asking questions again, and you might be getting a lot of data, and you're like, now what do I do with it? So, um, I'm just curious, like from your lived experience, what have you had those times where you're just like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? Like, so much data, like this is actually a very significant change in my body. I feel really different. So what do you do? I mean, has it been like that for you? And if it has, how do you how do you respond? What have you found to be helpful for you, like in some of those waters, if those waters have shown up for you?
Mhm. No, that's a fair question. Because I think it's hard to get away from, as you say, whether you know someone that makes you start questioning things or your own experience. And I think because my hormonal shift started very early, and it was before I was really aware of the power we do have to create our own reality and to shift our focus, I think I got caught up in it a little bit more of looking into hormone replacements and natural paths versus regular doctors. And as you say, you're trying to weigh the pros and the cons, and everybody has a story about where it went wrong for that person. And where I think it became helpful is when I started to focus more on how I do feel, and tuning in as best I can with my body, and to ask it, what does it need? What does it need? And in those years, I was still kind of on that hamster wheel of parenting and working in corporate. And I do know that my energy was very low. All of my levels were low. And so I did focus more on the health aspect as opposed to I mean, I did try some hormone replacement type therapies, and you always have to, do your own research and try what's best for you. I didn't find for me they made a big difference, but increasing supplements did, increasing my iron, making sure that all of the levels within my body were a bit more in those ideal zones, as opposed to being so stressed out and, you know, cortisol, stress. And there's all these different things that most women are very familiar with. So, focusing on the health, focusing on rest, focusing on exercise, asking myself what kind of food did my body want, those all, I think, were a step in the right direction for me, because it let me just bring it back to basics a bit more, as opposed to reacting to something and feeling like there was a problem I needed to fix. That was a really big step for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. Getting clear on how your body felt, how you
Mhm.
wanted to feel, and then yeah, asking your body what it needs. And it's like obviously this isn't a conversation I feel where it's like Sheila and I are telling anyone what to do. It's just like we're just
No,
sharing our journeys to be like,
yeah.
these are things that a lot of people can relate to, especially probably in these decades.
Mhm.
And you know, we we've been learning a lot in the past decade, so it's just more of us sharing like how we respond to life, learning
Yeah.
what we've learned, like these real life changes. So we're just sharing our journeys. It's like not here to like tell anybody what to do.
No.
um, it's just more like, hey, this is how I'm dealing with it. Maybe this perspective will feel a little bit lighter. It's just that kind of a thing. Uh, Denai says, we are no longer accepting things as truth. We're tuning in for what feels true to each of us. So, yeah, like really, yeah, tuning in and like assessing information,
Mhm.
perspectives. It's like, well, how do I really feel about
Yeah.
this? And if you feel like you have a strong connection with your intuition, it's like, well, what is my intuition telling me
Yeah.
about this shift, this change, this choice? Like, what does my intuition have to say? So thank you for that. Deny, like, that's definitely my approach as well. I'm like, well, what does my intuition have to say?
Yeah.
Um, Danielle says, let's be the group that shows the world how gorgeous and sexy and youthful and healthy we are. Sauntering through our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Let's metaphysical the heck out of this age gap. Uh, Thank you for that, Danielle. I can feel your energy. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of already touched on it, but yeah, attitude is so big. It's kind of like the way I see it is shifts do happen. Sometimes they take us by surprise. And it's like, again, it's like that response. Well, is it going to become like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal? Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, I don't like, is it like a lot of resistance, like overwhelm? And no judgment if that's the case. I'm just pointing out choices. Or is it more like, huh, okay, this is new.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on here. What are my choices? What are my options? Like, can I find out more that might help me? Because I can say it's like when something is really new and it is kind of like, it does have, significant impact, that state of like not really knowing anything about it. I know for me, you can just be like, when you don't really know anything about like the shift or the change of the subject, you can kind of be like, what's actually going on here?
Yeah.
So sometimes, some information that actually feels good in the receiving of it, some education, for me, sometimes I can kind of like, oh, okay, like now this shift in me, at least I feel like I have an understanding of like what may be actually going on, if that makes sense, rather than just like my mind trying to guess what's happening. But yeah, just the attitude and the approach I do feel is very powerful. Uh, and real quick, I mean, I want to respond to something you said, Sheila, but just real quick for me, like that's definitely what I've been doing because there have been other shifts in my body, and I just when I first observe it, it's like it's usually in like the bathroom mirror, and when I first observe it, I'm just kind of like, okay, this is new. And I kind of see like those voices of society rising up. They're kind of like I see them kind of rising up, and I'm just like, okay, I've I've heard these voices before. They're in the movies, they're in the talk shows. Like, okay, I know these voices, and I just kind of do my best to be like, but actually, I'm just gonna keep you over here,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I'm just gonna like see if I can be more of like the conscious witness in this moment, and just be
Yeah.
like, okay, there's a change. um, I like to approach it with curiosity. I just like to be like, okay, like, can I look at this without judgment? Can I look at this without criticism? Can I look at this without like a big overwhelming story? Can I kind of just see, what I'm seeing and just be more of that like open blank space, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Because that helps me take my power back, if you will, from all like the peanut gallery, as it's called. Uh, so to me, it's like really taking that moment, centering, uh, becoming that kind of like innocent witness in the moment. And then from there, I feel like I can choose, well, what is my response going to be? Like, how do I actually, like, consciously in my body want to respond to what's going on? And that's where I can start to feel into, like, compassion, grace, like, just staying away from the critical stuff, if that makes sense. So that was just coming up naturally. So I wanted to share that, and just thank you again for everyone in the comments and watching live. Super appreciate you. Uh, and so just reflecting on what you were sharing, Sheila. So, hmm, yeah, I'm kind of. I mean, it definitely. I got the sense that you were taking your power back. You learned how to take your power back in a lot of these things. Uh, has that also been? Yeah, on the note of story, like, do you find yourself wanting to, like, well, you've kind of already talked about it with the doctor. Does that continue to be, like, really important for you? Like, any change that presents itself, like you choosing the story that you want to tell about it, do you find yourself doing that?
Well, I think it is a great way of of and you're using that phrase of taking your power back. I think sometimes when things change and we perceive that it's something wrong or bad, we are putting that judgment on it and
Mm,
allowing yourself that perspective of not having the emotional attachment, but just going, oh, that is interesting. And even to give yourself a chance to question, what do I think about it? Leaving aside what society says or what I used to think, even last week, what I used to think. I could think about it now, and I could decide now if I have an opinion about it. So when I first started going gray, I had an idea that my mom went gray really early and used, the drugstore dyes to color her hair. I was like, I don't want this. I don't want to just be dyeing my hair with $7 Clairol for the rest of my life. And then I realized I don't have to do that if I don't want to. I do have choices. And
yeah,
at some point, I'm sure I will just let it go gray. I think it's going to look amazing, but I know that I'm not ready yet. And it's not so much yet that it really would look that different. And so I love going to my favorite hairstylist, and she does something with it that because she's the professional. And I say, yeah, thank you. I really enjoy how it looks. And just continuing to enjoy how it looks, I think, is the key, because it doesn't matter what color it is. It's how do I feel about it? And
yeah,
so when it tips the scale and she says, "You know what? We're going to start playing with this and make this gray pop." I'm going to be on board. I think because again, we get to take that power back and own it. And I do want to just drop in a couple of side comments that came up, Beau, as you were talking. I think it is really important that as we allow ourselves to soften the judgment that we have on ourselves, it gives us an opportunity to soften any judgment we may have for others as well.
mm,
And whether we're looking ahead to, people who are in a, I don't want to even say elderly, but it tends to be people who are older than us. And we think, oh, they don't do things anymore. And maybe you're even feeling sad for them. Like, oh, it's too bad they can't do that anymore. I think that's still very much a judgment that we can pull back on. And even to go on the other side, judging, say, movie stars who have the work done or use tools available for them, because for them it's very much tied into their identity and their profession. And I know I used to be very judgmental about that. Oh, why would women ever do that to their body? Blah, blah, blah. And then when you start having change, you think, oh, I wonder what's an easy way for me to make me feel better about this. Like, I color my hair. Some women would judge me for that and say, well, why wouldn't you just let yourself be natural? I put some makeup on. I don't try to wear a lot, but I wear enough that I feel pleased with it. I like having lipstick on. Like, it's not a big deal, but other women might judge that. And so to realize we don't have to judge ourselves, we don't have to judge others. We get to keep tuning in to what feels better for us. I think that's a really great opportunity when we do look in the mirror and we see something. It's not problem to be fixed so that I meet society's norms. It's how do I feel about this? And could this offer and create some space for me to let everybody else off the hook as well? Because they're all having their own moments of getting to decide.
Mm. Yeah. No, thank you for tying that in. Yeah, and that's so important. Yeah, because yeah, like our perception, the way it's connecting for me is that, you know, to me, the stories we tell are so powerful. And if we're telling the story about others in a certain way, then it kind of, we might start to tell those same stories about us
Hmm.
if they're in the harsh and critical category. So yeah, yeah, that's so powerful to be like, well, what stories am I telling about other people? Because if I'm telling about other people, that may start to also impact the one I'm telling about myself. So yeah, it just makes sense to be like, can I be the kind and compassionate person all around?
Yeah,
If that feels important to you, it does to me, and so I know
yeah,
it is to you based on what you just expressed, Sheila.
yeah.
So thank you for, because yeah, that's so important, and yeah, just like getting out of the judgment because we just don't know. Like, we've never walked in anyone else's shoes. We don't know why it's important to them. We don't know the
Hmm.
reason behind it. It could be any number of things. And
Yeah,
if we heard the story, we might be like, wow, like, yeah, I'm glad you did that for yourself. you know? But when we don't know, it's like, I'm kind of like, how can we have an opinion? Like, we have no clue. Like,
exactly.
and even at the end of the day, it's still up to them. It's like it's their life experience. I'm gonna see if I can catch up with the comments real quick here in a second. I just wanted to comment that it came back to me, the theme that you're really sharing from a few minutes back, and then you brought it up again, and it's all about how you feel. Like, I know you said when you were considering lots of different options, through your changes, like you kept asking, even like through the hormonal stuff, you kept asking like, well, how do I feel about this option? How do I feel about this
Yeah.
information? What does my body want? Like you were having that internal communication coming back to you. And it's really cool to hear that that's been the theme for you
Hmm.
because yeah, new information, new options. How am I going to respond? How am I going to navigate this? And what I've heard you continue to tie it back to, it's like, well, how do I feel, about whatever I'm considering or whatever my approach may be. So I love that you keep referencing that because obviously that's what's been real for you. um, Jill's giving us some gratitude. Thank you for the gratitude, Jill. And then and Denai's kind of joking with Danielle about the metaphysical, um, yeah, the metaphysical comments. So glad you're having fun in the comments. uh, and yeah, and real quick, so it's like I don't know this, yeah, it's just coming up in the moment. Uh, yeah, because it's just so interesting in these new categories. So like, I know you said your age, Sheila. So I'm 40. So it's like, it's still like, I don't know, it's a change for me, but obviously it's like, you know, it's not like the 60s. Obviously, like 40s are much different than that.
Hmm.
It's just a different experience. And,
Yeah.
still things are changing. And it's just funny to watch myself. Well, here's actually, it came to me at the beginning. It kind of like popped in, and I hadn't really thought about it like this before, that there's actually a hidden gift in some of these changes for me. And
Mm.
so for instance, one of the things I've been noticing is just like more kind of like dark spots. Like if I go out in the
Mhm.
sun, it's
Yeah.
like one of my freckles will start to become like, like a more intense freckle and like take up more space on my face. And, now it's like this dark spot. And I'm just kind of like, I kind of liked my face the way it was before. and, so then the questions do arise, like, what can I do about dark spots? It's like, naturally, because I like to, me personally,
Mhm.
I'm like, is there like an oil I could use or something? And I have found, actually, I'm about to bring it up, but it's kind of cool because like bringing in like the synchronicities and just how life can unfold based on the questions that we're asking. Um, I actually, I needed to rehab the skin under my eyes because recently I had like, um, an infection in both of my eyes that was just like a viral thing, and it really kind of like warped the skin under my eyes like big time. And I was like, okay, like, well, obviously I want to try and rehab this. And I just stumbled across this training on YouTube. It was actually an advertisement on YouTube because now they do these advertisements where if you like what they're saying, like it turns into like a 30-minute thing. And this one pulled me in because she's like, this is the one thing you don't want to be doing to your skin. And I was just like, okay, tell me what you have to say. And it was very educational, informative because um, she was saying that, and she was bringing up like research and studies that moisturizers actually are not good for skin. She's like the whole
Mm,
beauty industry is promoting moisturizers, and she basically presented a bunch of research to say it's actually causing your skin to go downhill faster.
mm,
And I was just like, what? So it's just funny to observe myself like tuning into these things more. And that I feel like is the gift because, yeah, when I was 30, I was just kind of like, I would just put on some moisturizer and be like, whatever, I'm good. I wouldn't really think about it.
yeah.
But now that these changes are happening, what I'm noticing is like, I really, really want to take good care of this thing. Like, how can I know more? Like, what's going to help me keep this in a way that I really appreciate. And I can tell that I'm taking good care of it. So, like, the hidden gift is like, now all of a sudden I care more because at 30 was like, I'm
Mhm.
invincible, nothing can touch me. Um, and now it's like, oh, wait, no, tell me how I can get the best out of my skin. And from that, I learned a number of things, one of which she said that uh, I'm just passing stuff on, like research that she was sharing. She was saying that grapeseed oil is actually known to help reduce the appearance of like dark spots. And she taught me the difference between like moisturizing and hydration. She said actually what your skin wants is hydration. And
Mm,
so that's just like a gift that I've noticed is like, yes, there are changes, and it's like,
yeah.
whoa, like now I'm thinking about this, and it's like, oh, but actually what's happening is like I want to slow down even more, pay more attention to my body, and say like, okay, tell me more about how I can really take good care of this. So it's like it's actually it's like reconnecting me with my body in new ways, if that makes sense, where it's just like I've always been health conscious. I've been in like the holistic wellness field, like studying all that for like 10 years, but it was more just like I want to feel my best, which I still do. But now it's like also, but how can I take care of this thing really good? Did anything come up for you while I was sharing that?
Well, definitely, because again, as someone who has a decade over you and plus that a little bit, it is amazing how you do get that new awareness and appreciation of
Yeah.
um, just how you used to maybe move with so much ease, but now when you don't do much, you do feel a little creaky going up and down stairs or bending down to tie your shoes, and you think, oh, I actually want to stay as mobile as possible. So now I will consciously choose to find activities to do that, to move my joints. And that's been my personal journey is I haven't been living anywhere with stairs. And then when I needed to go
Mm,
up them, I was shocked at just all the muscles and the joints that needed to be engaged that were saying, "Hey, you've been ignoring us." So
mm,
I absolutely am now showering my knee joints and my ankles with love and being as in tune as possible with them and offering them opportunities to show me their strength and their agility and building back the muscles that maybe got a little slack and it is a great gift to have that awareness. As you say, when you're young, you're just like, oh, whatever. But sun is obviously something that they do say, which I don't want to disagree with because I don't have a problem with it. So I do tend to wear a hat. I do tend to wear a good sunscreen, especially if I know I'm getting into the hotter climates. um, so I think it's nice to have that healthy respect and to find out what is an easy way that I can treat my body as a temple. We want it to stick around. I mean, I'd like to get to 100 at least. There's no reason why we can't all live to 100. And having that mindset, I think, is a great place to start. And honoring every complex system in your body and asking, how can I serve you? Like, you do an amazing job holding me up. How can I help you? And I think it's a great way to create a relationship with your body.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that to me just yeah, it just comes back to that gift aspect. It's like when the
Mhm,
curiosity, like that's why for me I like to lean into the curiosity. When it's the curiosity approach, it's just like and you and I have both studied very advanced metaphysical teachings, so I feel like you'll get this. For me, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, you're here now. I wonder why you're here. Like, I wonder
mhm.
what you're trying to tell me. you know, whether it's the joint mobility or a skin thing, or I'm more like, okay, like what's the opportunity here? And like
Yeah,
you just said, like that's what like I'm slowing down even more. Like slowing down has been important to me for a while, but now it's like I even remember just like in the past few months, like just sitting down like in stillness and just kind of like pulling one of my feet up and looking at my feet and thinking like,
mhm.
oh, I haven't really like looked at you in like 4 months. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like I cut my toenails, but aside from that, it's like I'm
yeah,
like, oh, hi foot, like I
yeah.
haven't really looked at you in like 4 months.
Well, and it's funny, it's that taking it for granted when and I
Yeah.
mean, the best lesson for anyone is when they are having, say, a back issue or a knee issue, or, you've done a really hard leg workout and all of a sudden just any trying to sit down or get back up again, you're like, "Ugh," you realize how often you've done that in your life without thinking about it because it's worked perfectly.
Mm,
And so we don't need it to be, broken to appreciate it. So I think the word that came to my mind when you were saying opportunity was invitation. It
mm,
feels like sometimes these little awarenesses are the invitation to offer even more appreciation and love and acceptance. And no, I still do believe we can create what we want. And so much of that is perception. So somebody might say, well, I need to lose 50 pounds. So are you telling me I should just believe that I'm, 50 pounds less? I think you can. I think you can start to feel and act like that person who has already lost it. And I don't want to start a whole side conversation that maybe is controversial, but for me, I have often felt that I carry too much body weight for to be healthy, to be attractive in the way that I'd like to be. I don't think there is an ideal body weight, but for me, I have always felt a little bit bigger than I personally wanted. And how I helped shift it for myself is I started to perceive for myself, because again, a part of where my own judgment was coming from is perceived judgment from others.
mm,
And so I would go out and say, what if I had just lost 50 pounds and this is my body after successfully taking the care of my body in a way that allowed it to release that weight? Like, how would I feel? Oh my God, I would feel so fit and attractive and proud and confident. And again, feeling into those emotions right now and then going from there. And it's amazing how you do feel different in your body with nothing else changing. And that tends to soothe a lot of the reasons of why maybe personally, again, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, I might have been carrying that weight, like not feeling the energy to exercise or going for the walk when I think, oh, or making it a chore that I should do it. Or, I can't eat that type of food. And then I would overeat another type of food. So when you tap into that confidence and the pride of taking such good care of your body, you tend to naturally do those things in a much more balanced way, and it feels really easy. So that again, my personal experience.
yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up the attractiveness aspect because it's like again, it's like, I mean, based on what you just said, and I'll say, like, for me, like, yeah, that I mean, as much as I know in the personal growth, like, we learn that how we feel about ourselves is most important, like, I'll
Mhm.
admit that voice still comes in, it's just like, I mean, but but, like, this whole attractiveness thing, like, am I still I mean, that voice comes up, and like, you kind of consider it a little bit from that lens,
Yeah.
right? And that's a part of it too. And again, I still feel like how we approach that, like how we work
Mhm.
with that voice is very important. And yeah, like for me too, it's just it's come up. It's like, well, now it's all different, and like I've never been here before,
Yep,
so like
yep.
that kind of like consideration or it does come up. So thank you for speaking to it, 'cause I'm sure a lot of other people can relate. Real quick, I saw Jill say something. She says, "I do like the hacks and potions aspect of it all." Ooh, I can make this turmeric fudge. Ooh, I can feel smart and flexible from stretching. Ooh,
Mhm.
kombucha. I can buy this for delicious health of this. Focus pocus. Um, yeah, thank you for bringing in the fun aspect, Jill. It's like,
Yes.
well, I, actually, on that note, like I remembered even thinking this past week, it's like, for me, because I was like learning about skin and stuff, and I actually, based
Mhm,
on that training, which was an advertisement, but it was still very informative,
mhm.
I actually made several shifts off of that. I was like, thank you
Nice.
for your education. And I actually am doing things completely different with my skin because she
Mhm.
basically told me this is like the worst thing you could do. And I like literally that day, I was like, I'm done.
Yep.
And now it's like I'm just like, ooh, like how can I like, give this what it needs? How can I
Mhm,
um I'm just bringing up the skin because it's very relevant. This is just last
mhm.
week, like the eyes, the
Yeah.
training, like this is all last week, so it's all very. But yeah, I'm just like, and then the thought came like maybe it's time for me to start doing face masks. Like again, like
Mhm.
how can I make it fun? Like
Yeah.
do that kind of like like luxurious kind of like okay, like let's love on you, let's dote on you. Which is what I was picking up from your comments. So thank you, Jill. And then reflecting on something you just said, Sheila, like I've just noticed that like I've seen many examples in my life of people in their 80s and their 90s who are
Mhm.
still so mobile. Like I
Yeah.
knew back in my 20s, I knew an 80-year-old, and she like every day she would go to a pool at 5 a.m. and swim. Like it was her thing to go like every day, at least during the week, Monday through Friday. And she would do yoga, and like she just, she was very like could move in a room very easily. Um, I'm thinking I just saw a video recently on social media of a 90-year-old who still goes out in the ocean and gets on a surfboard. She doesn't stand up on the surfboard, but she's on there on her hands and her knees, and she's kind of like,
Mhm.
paddling with one of her. And she's just like, hey, I don't care that I'm 90. Like, I'm still
Yeah.
going to find a way to get on my surfboard, even if I'm on my hands and my knees. And I'm just going to feel the ocean like moving under me. Uh, so again, it's like that whole attitude, like what story are we gonna choose? And
Yeah.
to me, the 90-year-old was like, I don't care. I'm still getting on that surfboard somehow.
I have an aunt who's 96 and she just stopped driving. And so she
Mm,
still lives on her own and, she's doing great. So again, how did she get there? I don't know how much she necessarily was consciously choosing it as we're opening up to more and more, but I love seeing how it is possible and how much easier is it going to be because we are tuning in more. And in some ways we have easier lives. It's easier for us to stay healthy and we have more freedom to make those choices.
yeah, that's what's kind of coming through is like I guess like the vibe I'm feeling is like it is more of that, okay, well, accepting what's showing up and just being,
Mhm.
and so like, how am I going to respond to it? And kind of feels like we're both finding like ways to make it interesting, ways to make it fun, ways to make it about appreciating the body more, taking better care of it, like even better care of it, no matter how good the care was before. It's like, oh, maybe there's another way. And like you said, just becoming more aware of your joint health, you're like, oh, okay, like now I'm aware of this. Okay, how am I going to respond? Like, I want to take care of this more. And so, yeah, I just love that the approach that we're talking about is just, it is like, okay, like here we are, and what can I do about it? And in an empowering way, it's that empowering way or even fun way. I love that Jill's like just bringing that, like, okay, I get to play with potions now. Let's go. So like, yeah, just all points back to I feel like we brought it up at the beginning. It's like, okay, well, what are we what are we gonna choose to respond with? Like, what
Yeah.
choice are we gonna make? Is what it feels like it keeps coming back to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely can't wait. When and I'm going to reverse that. When I was getting close to turning 40, I had a lot of friends who were dreading turning 40.
Mm,
And I was so excited because my 30s had been kind of a tough decade. It was like, hell yes, bring on 40. I can't wait. And a lot happened. And it definitely was going in the right direction, again, of building the freedom, building health, building time for myself and freedom of making choices and of the, being active, things like that. And so when 50 came, I was excited. I never have had that resistance against the numbers. And it just to me keeps moving me towards more freedom, more opportunities to travel and meet people and create more. And so I'm excited about the 60s. They are still a ways away, but this is me creating the body that that 60-year-old version of me is going to love because of how active we'll get to be.
mhm. Yeah, like it's an investment, right? It's like I can tell
Mhm.
you're like I'm feeling good about 100, and so it's like
I'm
okay,
loving it.
like this thing is an investment. So like
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep paying attention. I'm gonna keep listening, appreciating, and yeah, like how can I invest in a way that feels good? That was one of the things you really talked about in the middle was like, how does it feel? How does the option feel? The information feel?
Yeah.
Uh, and then yeah, like seeing it as an investment because you're just like, well, like I'm still gonna be here for a while, so
Well, it's
yeah,
fun because I know you mentioned you really like to look at the natural alternatives. I like to think that we have created all of the options available. So
mm,
I don't necessarily jump to the doctor every 2 seconds, but I also don't push away
mm,
Western medicine. Like
yeah,
we have evolved all of these professions for a reason, and I think that everything, if it's helpful for us, we get to choose. I mentioned I did wear glasses for years. I would never consider sucking it up and just squinting and pushing away going to an optometrist. And so
yeah,
I think it's really useful to notice how, as a civilization, we have created wonderful opportunities. I know young people have had knee replacements, hip replacements because they've had issues and now they have the mobility back again. So I think it's nice to be open to what is available. And it always is that tuning in what feels better.
yeah, yeah. No, thank you for yeah speaking to that. Yeah, it's just it's again there are options, and
Mm.
yeah, it's like we both talked about the intuition in the beginning, like tuning
Yeah.
in, and so yeah, like just whatever options each person feels led to just feels the best for them like at that moment at that stage. It's like that's why I also love that you brought in the non-judgment because
Mhm.
it's like whatever choice someone else is making based on what they're navigating or looking at or experiencing, it's just like yeah, it's like we have options, and so like everyone's going to find their way to just I would imagine just I would imagine on some level they're just like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going with. This is just what feels best right now. So yeah, thank you for speaking to the many options, and then just again, just bringing back that note of like, there's no need to judge. We're
No,
all just we're all navigating. We're all just looking for what feels best. So yeah, that non-judgment is really important as well. So yeah, this has been really, really fun. I feel like we've spoken to some good things, offered some perspectives and real life experience, and just kind of aired out and talked about real things. Um, any like imparting words or just yeah, just anything you feel like you want to leave people with as we start to kind of tie up here.
well, I think that the phrase self-care has gained in popularity, and I think it really does boil down to that. It's offering yourself, your body, the chance to feel better in whatever way that is, and maybe that's a massage or time to relax. It it can be anything. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be an intervention of any way, but I think you can call in what would feel good. and allow yourself to have that opportunity. I know I would never go for massages. It felt very, too luxurious and wasteful of money. And then I realized, hell no, it feels amazing. And why would I, cheat myself of that opportunity? And so I don't have a regular schedule, but it's something that I'm open to now. And being open to the ideas that feel good. Like you said, facials and even Jill was saying like playing with potions. It's fun sometimes to go and smell things and maybe make your own face creams or masks. And it could be something you can do with others. And it to incorporate that fun and playfulness and self-care and know that it's not about a condition. It's not about a weight or having clear skin or anything like that. It's about feeling really good in yourself and in your body and knowing that it is just that perspective. And it's the how do you feel should be the number one question. And if it's, well, I don't feel great, then the next question is, what could I do right now that would feel easy, that could help shift that perspective? And again, it might not have anything to do with the body. It might be call a friend, or it might be go for a walk and just sit in the sunshine or have a cup of tea. It's all about that choosing to feel better.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And what was coming to me as you were just saying that last part was it may just be as simple as like, okay, how do I just kind of let the judgment go in this moment? You know,
Absolutely.
am I being really judgy and like critical right
Yeah.
now? What
Yeah.
would it feel like just to start to like, let that begin to start to fade into the background?
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, yeah, it doesn't always have to be like, so much all at once. It can just be like, what is that next step right now that would just help me have that shift, feel a little bit better, and yeah, just like self care to me, I feel like it is. More and more people are seeing the value, the investment of like, of taking good care, of investing in the body. Um, sometimes I joke that. Sometimes I make the joke that it's like we're not all these just minds walking around. Like there's a whole body attached to this thing. And it's like, and I feel like, just based on what we're seeing in culture, the body is kind of like being like, hello, I'm here. Like, like I require, like care as well. So like I'm here.
Yeah.
Like you're not just this. Uh, so yeah, anyways, thank you for sharing what you shared. And yeah, it's been a lovely, informative conversation. I love like the themes that we've touched upon, like the how does it feel, like what does my intuition say, um, what just feels a little bit better, seeing it as an investment, all these things, like taking care of ourselves as an investment, all these things, and just our attitude, our approach to all of it. So it's been delightful, thank you so much. And yeah, again, if you want to know more about Sheila or myself, again, you can find our links in the description of this video. Just thank you to all of the live viewers and your comments. It's been really fun to have you here chiming in, helping us laugh and giggle and also know how you're feeling about these things. So it's been a nice collective conversation. Feel free to leave any feedback or comments on the replay as well. And just thank you again, Sheila. This has been a delight as always.
Yes, thank you, and thanks to everyone who came out. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, everyone, yeah, until next time, thanks for tuning in. And yeah, just, if you want to share this conversation, feel free. It's just really easy to do that. Stays right here on Facebook. So thanks again, and hopefully see you soon. Much love.
Bye.